is Dr. Gai Jorayev. Um, he's a research associate at the Institute of Archaeology at UCL, University College London, the UK. He holds degrees in tourism and archaeological heritage management and currently works at UCL Institute of Archaeology as a degree program coordinator for the MA in managing archaeological sites, and who also works as part of the research teams focusing on the two main areas of modern day heritage management and digital heritage. He has a background in heritage management, touristic planning, and public outreach. And he has worked with international heritage management and research projects since 2004. He recently carried out projects in post-Soviet space, Africa, and the European Union. He currently collaborates closely with organizations such as UNESCO, International Council for Museums, the World Tourism Organization, and international development agencies, particularly on their activities in Central Asia. His current research focuses, among others, in using digital documentation for creating open access heritage inventory systems and for monitoring change and informing decisions. So, Guy, if you're ready.
Yes. I hope you see my presentation. If you don't, please give me a shout, Aris. Otherwise, I'll just continue, assuming that everyone sees this. Hello, everyone. I'm really great to be here. And it's a very difficult act to follow such an excellent range of presentations today, especially the last two coming from Tanzania and Albania, both places I had the pleasure to visit in the past, and I was really impressed by the presentations today of colleagues, but also by the heritage represented in those countries. So today I would like to talk about Central Asia, the region where I spend most of my time working these days, and in communication with organizers, I thought maybe we'll highlight some of the problems of a regional approach to, in terms of the public engagement to Central Asia. So as Ari said, I work at the Institute of Archaeology in London here at UCL, and my background is very much in modern day management of heritage sites, but also tourism and a little bit of public engagement in general as well. So Central Asia is a very interesting region. This is why Central Asia, we usually mean 5 Central Asian republics of post-Soviet space: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. But these days we also do a little bit of work in Central Asian parts of China and in the neighboring regions as well. Central Asia has this great diversity of heritage, and this diversity is really impressive, from different landscapes to different periods, different empire systems. And it's a truly great place to work if you are an archaeologist or heritage specialist, and we really enjoy that part of it. But also it presents a diversity of challenges as well, because as you can imagine, with several states, have different state organizations, research institutions being involved in, and also with such an extensive landmass, it represents so many different challenges, and combining them together will not really be easy, even if we could talk for days. So today, talking about the community engagement part of it, I would like to highlight the opportunities that it represents to us, but also challenges it represents in the region. 2 projects in particular that I wanted to highlight is, one of them is Ancient Merv, a major famous Silk Road city in Turkmenistan. And UCL, my university, has a long-term involvement at Ancient Merv under the leadership of Tim Williams. We have been working there for a long time in terms of public engagement and the local education initiatives as well. With the help of our dear friend Mike Corbishley, who's our great specialist on archaeology and education, we developed as early as 2004, 2005, a really good range of materials for local schools, and used them extensively, and in local language as well, and used them extensively to train local teachers and also to engage with the local community. So those activities brought huge benefits for our work locally. And Merv is located literally in the area surrounded by several villages. It is a huge site. It's around 1,200 hectares of archaeological landscape, one of the most extensive archaeological sites in the world, but also one of the most complex in terms of its management and in terms of its preservation. Most of the monuments there being mud brick and the mud architecture in general. So the community engagement has a priority as an act of conservation and management, as well as kind of as an act of duty from our point of view, being archaeologists coming to work in this context. But at the same time, there are several challenges of working in Turkmenistan in general, but also doing things like community engagement in a place like Mer, because Turkmenistan, as some of you may know, is one of the most restrictive countries on earth, has a very authoritarian regime, and the state bodies usually prefer the engagement to go through the channels that are controlled by the state. So, for example, through the national television or through the events that are sponsored by the state, for example, big events, conferences. And that's their type of preferred type of community engagement and interaction between international archaeological groups and the local population. But obviously, that's not really the community engagement that we envisage coming from a Western point of view or institutional point of view in the UK. So Turkmenistan represents some opportunities, but also huge challenges. In contrast, I also work for a long time in Kazakhstan, especially the area of Otrar in the south of the country. And this is another major archaeological landscape, a major Silk Road associated city complex. And the approaches in Kazakhstan are quite different to Turkmenistan. The local institutions are very supportive of our efforts of community engagement, especially our work with the local schools and the groups in the local community that are usually seen as underrepresented. And those type of efforts are really celebrated highly, both by our partner institutions in the country, but also by local media as well. So we have a range of activities, a regular meeting with the local schools, events at their premises, as well as inviting them to our premises as well. And we have a very good local museum in the area where our dig house is located, where excavation base is located. And through the museum, we also engage, I would say, on day-to-day basis with the local community on different aspects. So here you see our specialists, our students working with the local children on cleaning the pottery. But these type of events go across the range of activities that we do. And in this, technology always helps. So we are we pioneer several approaches to documenting these landscapes using, for example, things like unmanned aerial vehicles, but also using a little bit of a higher end of a technology. Kazakhstan is a really well-developed country in terms of implementing technology into archaeological documentation and the monitoring and the conservation as well, and we add into that. And that really helps to bridge some of the gaps for the local community and to highlight some of the problems as well. So these are two examples that in a kind of a micro level explain our experiences in Central Asia. Currently, though, we have a very big project called Central Asian Archaeological Landscapes. And this aims at looking at the heritage of the entire region as a full model. So we are trying to create a kind of a online geospatial database of all monuments, all heritage information that's available in Central Asia. So it will make more heritage information accessible to wider groups than we ever imagined before. And we plan dissemination through a centralized public-facing platform using Archives platform that's developed by Getty Institute. But also we're trying to disseminate information through different other channels as well. And information is truly diverse. So here you see an examples of aerial photography that's being digitized, notebooks of the archaeologists from early parts of the 20th century, and then I would say tons, but tons is probably a wrong word, meters of shelf space occupied by plans, drawings, and information that's created on paper during the 20th century, because these lands were heavily researched by research institutions of Soviet Union, and those information packages are accessible through our partners, and we are continuously digitizing them, working together with all heritage institutions that are keen to contribute into this project, be part of this project, and digitizing them and trying to make them available on a public-facing platform. And as it was highlighted already today by several speakers, there is a growing influence of digital platforms in general. So the question naturally arises, do we really need to invent a new public-facing platform or kind of a new system? Why not to use the existing means of communication, for example, social media? But there are some challenges in that area. So, for example, social media is a factor in Central Asia, but different countries use a very different types of very different types of social media. Internet is not something new, for example, in places like Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan, but it is a reasonably restrictive in places like Turkmenistan and Tajikistan, and in Uzbekistan, it's taking a kind of a new forms, country opening up to outside world only very recently. And the platforms that different countries use, or majority of population in different countries use, are very different. So it's not the world of Facebook dominating everything, or I don't know, a Instagram dominating everything. Every country will choose a type of a social media platform that's more suitable for their needs, or that just ended up being very popular. So it's very difficult to find the common platform existing from existing channels to disseminate information and to keep engagement going, especially under the current conditions of the pandemic. Local institutional platforms also exist. So, for example, platforms like e-history in Kazakhstan and similar platforms, ideas of a platform do exist in Uzbekistan as well. They do exist, but nevertheless, they're not very strong. Their visitation is very low, and the management of those platforms are usually done in a not very dynamic fashion in terms of how internet technologies are developing right now. So they're not, and also they usually represent the interpretation as authorized by the state again, and that's not the aim here. And we collaborate and use online news media, but they deliver a kind of a mixed results as well. Again, the interpretation then usually taken away from hands of the heritage specialists, but handed over to the online means of communication. There is nothing wrong with that, and I'm all for multi-locality, but one of the goals of our project is actually making data available and giving more opportunity to researchers to everyone kind of interpret it in their own terms in a way, and equally giving local communities the data. And as previous speakers mentioned, there are very different understanding of same heritage objects if you listen to the local communities and if you listen to the local heritage professionals. I will not dwell on that point, but I will just talk about some of the approaches that we are planning and keeping in mind right now. So one of the areas is, one of the great plans is engaging in multiple levels. So we are trying to make information fully open access through Archiv's platform, through our own centralized platform, but also at the same time sharing that information across the board. So for example, here you see the Open Heritage 3D, and one of the newer sites sponsored by SIAR to start with and supported by Google Arts and the Culture as well. So this allows us to deposit a very heavy, highly detailed information, for example, things like the laser scan data or heavy photogrammetric data. This is a certain type of data, may be usually useful for researchers trying to do more discoveries on the heritage of the region, but at the same time, it's also available to the wider public as well. And also we use several other platforms. So for example, we use the best known probably for three-dimensional models, Sketchfab, and we deposit our models on Sketchfab with all the annotations, all the information, and all the additional links to the core of the data, for example, presented in places like Open Heritage 3D. And we even take it a little bit further and work with truly open places like Wikimedia and Wikidata, where we also deposit a similar type of information, at least in a limited amount for every major site that we collect information from, in order to make it truly accessible for a longer term. And it's kind of, I see it as our way of democratizing or giving back to the communities the information under the Creative Commons license for future use. And then there is one central bit of the approach right now, which is the UCL Research Data Repository. This is our new platform that's gaining some speed now. And this is designed to be a dissemination platform for all types of research data from UCL. It's not archaeology specific. Actually, archaeology is only a small part of it. But we usually deposit our data here as well, especially if it is a site-specific data, because we see this as something that will go for a longer term as well. As long as UCL as a university stands, we hope the platform will carry on as well. And this allows us to create higher levels of metadata. So not only the presenting the data sets, but also additional metadata, how this data was collected, how it was digitized, what approaches were used at that period. And the metadata is made publicly available, searchable as well. So that the likelihood of someone searching for specific sites or themes or heritage objects in Central Asia and coming to our open access, open platform within UCL is very, very strong. Now, we nevertheless have some concerns, and these concerns, I'm not here to present a kind of a complete project. This is early on in our project, and this is something unparalleled before. We have never approached a regional project of this nature before, and in the region, there was never a approach or attempt to do something of this scale before. So we have certain questions, for example, how to ensure long-term engagement in a regional level. Even if we have engagement right now, does it necessarily translate to a longer-term engagement, for example, from the side of our local partner institutions, but also from the side of local researchers and the local population, local community, and I'm obviously generalizing here. And also how to ensure sustainability of platforms. And here, so as I explained, we try to diversify our impacts through several platforms, so hoping that some of them will be sustainable for a longer term. So for example, you said UCL research data repository, we know that that can be sustained as long as the university supports that. And we also know, for example, Open Heritage CD will be sustainable longer term as long as the backers are there. So that's one of the reasons why we try to place things also in places like Wikimedia, for example. The greater question is how to make public engagement part of the mission of the local partner institutions. And this may come as a surprise because not in all of these countries, public engagement as seen as part of a mission statement, as it were, of research institutions, because the institutions are usually emerged from the Soviet period, and they have a certain ideas about what the public duty of the institutions are. And it is changing in some places. So for example, in Kazakhstan, debates are continuously ongoing what the mission of the institution should be in terms of public engagement as well. But in some other countries, this is a new type of a debate to be had. And as early on, one of the organizers said, it's not our place to tell to the institutions what to do and how to manage their heritage and how to research their heritage. But nevertheless, it's kind of our place to showcase our approaches from our UCL side, and in the hope that these good practice examples will be picked up. And I think that today's presentations were excellent to showcase some of these, and I'm hoping to share some of these findings from today with my colleagues in the Central Asia. So these questions still remain, and we are nowhere near to comprehensively answer them. But one of the goals today was actually to highlight that problems exist as well as some of the successes we had already in the region. And also, I would like to link it to bigger issues. Public engagement is critical, not only because it's our duty, not only because we should be respecting local community values attached to those heritage sites, but also there are bigger challenges for heritage in the region as well. And it in a way, global challenges too. So for example, we have a very growing damage from expansion, agricultural expansion in the region, archaeological sites being directly damaged, and very often because there is no community engagement in place, because the values that the academics hold about those heritage sites are not directly communicated to local heritage stakeholders. There is a threat from urban and rural expansion. Again, this is not something new for Central Asia. It's kind of another set of global issues. And we also face a really strong threat from climate crisis in Central Asia. Most of you would have probably heard about the RLC drying up, but RLC is not the only issue in the region. Being such a vast landscape and undergoing so many expansive agricultural projects and the development projects, both during the Soviet Union and later on, the region really faces some climate crisis issues, and public engagement is really critical from that point of view as well. Thank you so much. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Guy. This actually, I think your presentation actually brings us full circle, and I'm very happy we placed you last on our list of speakers, because we actually brought back the question of the relationship between local and global. And I was very much taken by the scale of this project. We actually approach a cultural area, as it were. I mean, the Silk Road, for example, is something that began from China and ended up in Italy. So we have this massive cultural area There's so many differences inside it, and yet we have a heritage project that actually affects, threading of all these different areas and different understandings of culture and life. I like to think of these projects as, the travelers of the Middle Ages that really had no country. They were these nomadic people who crisscrossed all these areas, spoke so many languages. They had this understanding of culture, not as a place based, but as based on the road, based on a route. And